Alright, so the Dwarves, we talked about them before. This is the second book for this year and the third one in the series Revenge of the Dwarves. And as always with Marcus Heitz's Dwarves books, they are huge. I think this one's longer than the others. This one's like nearly 800 pages, 750 or something like that. So they are long, they take forever, they're good books. But let's start talking about the cover here, as we always started out with. So talking of the cover, this is the standard the Dwarf series so far. It is the CGI Dwarves. I absolutely hate it. It is terrifying in so many ways and not very nicely made, in my opinion. We have title, author. For once, this I don't mind. I think it's relatively clean. I prefer if this then got a little bit bigger than this. Like we just got just a tiny bit more size. I do appreciate though that Marcus Heitz, even though he is international bestseller and all that, is still the smaller name because I don't know, I just prefer it. As always, the back here we have again a horrible CGI dwarves. I think it's supposed to be Tongdil, the main character. It's either that or Ironheart. I'm not sure. Given it's an axe, I think it's Tongdil, but you know, who am I to know? And the backside. Now, this book, we're just gonna talk a little smoothly through it. So it's separated into parts as a lot of other books. Let's see if we can find the start here. Prologue, and the prologue itself is relatively long. Oh, never mind. I thought it had parts. I guess it doesn't. I could have sworn I saw at some point it had parts. Anywho, the first, I guess what I would call part in this very long book is mainly a setup, and it also has this main setup story of Tongdil being a depressed, drunken dwarf. And I know what you're going to say, but lightning. These books, all the dwarves are drinking constantly, so what's the problem? Well, the problem is here, he is a drunkard like the smith in the first book. I don't remember his name. Bremdel. So really he is a horrible drunkard who is angry all the time and hates life. And he does that because Bellandes and him lost their first child together. It died stillbirth, I think it was. I don't think we really ever got it. Got like it explained, but something like that. And that made him, you know, blame himself and all that. And, you know, he also kind of started not really being in love with Bellandes the same way he thought he used to be. But he also thinks that's just because of drinking. We'll get back to that. At the same time, we have Rodario, who I would argue in this book is almost as much of a main character as Tongdil is. And the reason for that is we follow him a lot, and he is like the primus motor for a lot of the events going on here, because he's actively searching for Fergus, his Mechanicus, as they call it. So he's Machine Man. And that's like the entire first part is setting up that Tongdil is lost his son and has a drinking problem that Boundel Ironheart has to help him with. We also set it up that at the same time Rodario is searching for Fergus. Now, of course, we can't build such a big story on that, so to add a curl into this, the elves have sent envoys to the human realms and also the dwarves at some point to like work as cultural exchange. And of course, Glaimbar, I think it is, there's so many names, the High King wants them to, you know, return the favor and sends Tongdil and Ironheart to like work as representative of the dwarves and teach the elves a little bit about the dwarven way and culture and science. At first it seems like a good gesture until you notice like how the elves act towards the humans, and that's in the Prince of Eidoslain, I don't remember his name. He's the one who notices and like doesn't fall for the ruse. So something's up with the elves. We have a mystery to uncover. At the same time, we have these monsters who invades the world, the different kingdoms, and steals both the real and the fake diamonds. And we don't know who they are, where they come from, so they're also a mystery. Now, talking of all the mysteries and all these plot points here, in the previous book, that was my biggest complaint, like absolute biggest complaint, that they felt too disconnected, and it took too long before Heitz got them added in together. Now this one here, that's different. It's no longer that case. Very early on, we get that he adds them in and works them together, and that's really great. I mean, you can clearly see them as different storylines, but you can also see where they're gonna merge and where they're just gonna be tangents to each other and overlap a little, and it feels so much better. And I really enjoy that. Now, Earhart does get Tungdil out of his drunken mindness thing, talking about how he doesn't want to live anymore, by saying, well, then jump off a cliff. No, probably not the most tactful way, but it does work. And that is halfway a complaint I have at Marcus Heitz, because that is, in my opinion, really bad representation for someone who is dealing with mental illness and grief. You shouldn't tell them to do stuff like that, ever, because you don't know how they're gonna react. But at the same time, kind of funny. It was a haha funny moment, so I'll take it. It is definitely a product of time. I think this one's like mid 2000s. It's from the book. Let's take a look here. 2011. So, yeah, mental health was still not the biggest thing to talk about, so okay. Product of its time, don't do that to other people. Now, the plot itself then diverges to a island that can sink and raise with magic and science created by Fergus. And we also learn about the Outer Realms, because the Dwarves and the orcs from the Outer Realm are coming to visit to get the diamond, because they needed to prevent a giant army of monsters from invading the world. And they help out our team. I don't really have much to say, other than we get some character development from Tungdil. He falls in love with that one dwarf, and it's kind of the same as Belandis and Mia. What happened there is something new, interesting shows up, and then he's interested. And he does acknowledge that as a character trait, that is it, and therefore he gets himself released from being married to Belandis, because he doesn't think it's fair to her, which 100% agree. If you just aren't in love, you shouldn't be together. Easy as that. Now, we found this sunken island. I think it's such a cool concept, an island that can sing and raise. And we find Fergus. Fergus is the one who shows them. He explains that he escaped the island and he was forced to create all of these monsters, and that's how our stories come by. I think that's awesome, because at the end of book 2, when Namora was killed by the star thing, he was struck with grief and really just hated the world, because both Namora and his daughter died. Now, that was going to be used against him, and therefore he created all this stuff relatively easy. Now he feels bad and wants to help destroy it, and he does. And then he dies. Spoiler, guess. Bit late. But of course, not without the thirdlings he was working for /with sold the seed of doubt in Tungdil by saying, oh no, this was all Fergus's idea, we're just following his orders. How can you be so stupid otherwise? And that of course leads to some, Tungdil rightfully keeps a secret from Rodario, because Dario is super sad about all of this, because his best friend died. And so he's like, yeah, since we don't know for sure, let's just assume that it was a thirdling lie. All the while, one of the unslayable princes has hunkered down, and we also learn that monsters are a product of the Elvar, the evil elves, like the female leader, getting raped by orcs. It's wild. Heitz did not hold back, and it's weird. The monsters are fine. We get a glimpse that some of them are not necessarily evil, but it's more forced to be. We kind of have the nature versus nurture argument going, but they don't take chances and kill them. We also have a legitimate elf son from the two siblings. That felt weird to say. Who's also not evil, but is being fostered by his dad. And he doesn't quite understand that he's a different race from the normal elves, because they kind of look indistinguishable when they want to. And they of course have the diamond because they want to resurrect their sister, but she gets killed by the quote-unquote good elves, who are now a cult following the bad guys from book 2, believing that they are gonna cleanse the world from evil. I think that is a interesting take. It's a good way of keeping previous books relevant. I think that made it so, even though it's kind of a similar, kind of a standalone story, each of the books, Heitz is still managing to keep them relevant, the old previous ones, in multiple ways. We also have reference all the way back to Newton or Nudon, depending on if it's the evil or bad one, because of his disciples, and also because Tungdil's adoptive dad, the wizard guy, I don't remember his name. He got turned into stone in the first book. Now he's back to being a human, but he has a piece of Nodon in him, and therefore can talk with him, and his powers are kind of limited unless he lets go and lets Nodon influence him more. And it connects the books. It makes it what happened in the previous books more relevant. Of course, then we learned that the Outlands dwarves and what are they called? Orcs are good, and we work along with them, and we get the final fight where it apparently isn't. At first, they thought it was the Magus who was supposed to be the pure of heart, which I thought, and I don't know, I thought that meant he had to be just pure good. But no, he just means be a virgin, and they're like, oh, but the Magus is of course a virgin because he's dedicated his life to study. But part of Nodon in him, and in the first book Nodon had sex. So of course he couldn't do it. They didn't know, he just got rejected by the platform where the stone goes. But then this thirdling that Ironheart has been training is the one who then tries, mainly out of necessity. And everyone's been making fun because they have been wrestling in the bed. Which the both of them has been very adamant was wrestling and not sex. And of course, it's sex. But spoiler or surprise, it's not. It is actually wrestling. She is a virgin. They have been holding hands and kissing at most, and barely kissing. So, it's a twist of fate. They were just practicing their fighting wrestling moves. This is so weird. So, and then the stone gets placed in. Of course, Tungdil gets trapped. Of course he does. And we have to presume him dead by the end of the book here, because he's trapped by some of the biggest monsters, among others a dragon. A dragon also gets released out before they close it up. And that's probably gonna be the setup for book 2 is finding Tungdil and killing the dragon. Now, let's talk about my feelings on this book. Is it a good book? I think this is by far the best in the series. It's not by far. I think it is the best in the series, but it's a close one between this one and the first. I think it is by far way better than the second book. I think the plot is tighter. I think it's easier to follow along with the different plot threads, because multiple characters will be in multiple plot threads, and it's way easier, way more entertaining. I think the humor is there. Some of the stuff, like the way treating mental health, the raping, some of it is a bit out there, but I don't think it's bad. I don't think it takes away from it too much. It's just a little hiccup along the way. I really think the book sets up also some interesting with the Elfar son and the male elf who disappeared to the outer lands. Like, there's still a lot of unread threads, and there are of course 6 books in the series, as I recall. So there's still many more things, but I think it sets up decently while also being contained story. And now we have a brand new area, the Outlands, to explore, which does have their own names, but I don't remember what they are. I barely remember them places in this book. So yeah, absolutely excited. It is if you read the first 2 books, you should read this. If you haven't read any of the books, you should. They are great, and they are a lot of fun, and I am so excited to move on with the next book soon. So yeah, that's gonna be it. Next up, we're gonna be looking at The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke, but that's gonna be in the next review. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Goodbye.